Your role no longer fits within our corporate framework, Caroline explained during a brief Zoom meeting. Your department is being consolidated. My name is Dustin Hale, 44 years old, former Senior Development Director at Red Forge Technologies in Boulder, Colorado. For 12 years, I have been instrumental in building systems and leading teams that transformed the company from a floundering startup into a respected name in the energy solutions sector. Every major platform we launched, every innovative process, weaved with my influence. I didn't argue or show any emotion when Caroline delivered the news. I calmly inquired about the transition procedure and logged off, professional to the last moment. That was 3 weeks ago. Today, I sat in my home office going over the non-compete clause in my contract. The wording had loopholes, substantial ones. The legal team representing the acquiring company had been careless, likely assuming that staff from a smaller firm wouldn't notice or lack the resources to push back. Their miscalculation. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Jason, our lead systems architect, the fifth engineer to contact me since the acquisition was announced. You were right about the new leadership. They're dismantling the innovation pipeline. Still thinking about that project we discussed. I set the phone down, not replying. Not yet. Timing was critical. The acquisition had been celebrated across the industry. Triumph Energy Corporation, a Fortune 500 titan, had absorbed our promising startup. The press release highlighted our complementary strengths and shared vision. Caroline Vega, newly appointed CEO of our division, had promised limited disruptions. We value the talent that built Red Forge, she had said. Empty promises. The first layoffs occurred within 8 days. I opened my laptop and reviewed the business proposal I had been refining for months. Not because I anticipated being terminated, though I had suspicions, but because I saw the company's direction shifting long before the acquisition. The leadership team had become fixated on quarterly targets instead of long-term innovation. When Triumph made their offer, our executives practically stumbled over themselves to accept. Their eagerness should have been the first red flag. In the kitchen, I poured myself a coffee and glanced at the whiteboard I'd mounted on the wall. It listed the names of Red Forge's key clients, their ongoing challenges, and the custom solutions our team had developed. Solutions now destined to be dismantled by people who didn't comprehend them. Beneath that list, I had written 5 names, Red Forge's top engineers, individuals I had personally mentored. Each of them had privately reached out, asking what was next. I hadn't answered yet. The plan wasn't fully formed, but it would be soon. I had joined Red Forge when we were just 11 people in a converted warehouse. The founder, Harold Thompson, had a vision to revolutionize commercial energy monitoring, but lacked the technical execution. I provided that, creating our first functional product, working 80-hour weeks while my marriage gradually crumbled under the weight. "You're married to that company," my ex-wife had said during our last argument. She wasn't wrong. For more than a decade, I turned down offers from larger firms offering better pay and benefits. Harold made me feel like I mattered. "This is your company too, Dustin," he'd say. We didn't have any formal equity arrangements, a mistake I now recognize, but there was always the unspoken promise that loyalty would be rewarded once the company succeeded. Then Harold's health declined. 3 years ago, his son Tyler took over. Tyler, armed with a fancy MBA, lacked his father's passion. His focus shifted to grooming Red Forge for acquisition rather than building a lasting legacy. The culture changed. Quarterly results replaced innovation targets. Whenever I raised concerns in executive meetings, Tyler would smile politely and pivot the conversation. "We'll circle back to that, Dustin," became his default reply. We never did. 6 months ago, I overheard Tyler speaking with 2 Triumph executives in a conference room, casually discussing which departments would be deemed redundant after the merger. Mine topped the list. That night, I began sketching the framework for what would become Pinnacle Dynamics, a rival firm founded on everything Red Forge had forsaken. I kept quiet, continued to excel, and waited. If they kept me, I'd remain loyal. If not, I had an alternative ready. The first real indication that I was being pushed out came when Caroline scheduled individual meetings with every department head, except me. Then, I was excluded from strategic planning emails. Eventually, Matthew from HR asked for a quick chat about my team structure. Still, I kept updating documentation, mentoring junior engineers, and positioning myself as indispensable, or so I thought. 2 days before I was officially let go, Caroline requested access to my project archives and development roadmaps. I complied immediately, detailed and thorough, still professional to the very end. When the Zoom call came, it lasted exactly 7 minutes. She had no idea that while she was walking me through my severance package, I was already texting Jason. Time to talk about that project. Dinner at my place tomorrow. 7 p.m. 5 engineers showed up. All shared similar stories. Marginalized by the new regime, innovation projects discarded, concerns brushed aside. They were waiting for someone to lead the charge towards something better. The moment that crystallized everything was watching Caroline deliver her first company-wide address, 6 weeks post-acquisition. With 47 employees already cut, she stood on the stage that had once celebrated our biggest innovations and revealed Triumph's integration roadmap. RedForge's systems will be phased out over the next 18 months, she declared, as we transition to Triumph's enterprise framework. That architecture she referenced was already outdated by at least 3 years. Our team had created advanced solutions specifically because Triumph's system couldn't meet the demands of modern clients. And now, they were eliminating our work to retrofit something broken. In the crowd, I watched the remaining engineers trade knowing looks. They understood what this meant. Years of effort wiped away, client priorities dismissed. The very innovations that had made RedForge valuable enough to be acquired were now being dismantled. I remained silent during the Q&A session, never contradicting Caroline's claims about synergies and cost efficiency. I simply observed who nodded in agreement and who kept their eyes on their notebooks, avoiding any eye contact. After the meeting, I walked to my car in the parking garage and sat there for nearly an hour with the engine off, just thinking. This wasn't merely about me losing my job. It was about something I had helped create being deliberately torn down by people who didn't grasp its true worth. That evening, I powered up my laptop and finalized the business proposal I had been crafting. What began as a backup plan was now becoming something tangible. I created a secure chat group with the 5 engineers who had visited me after I was let go. If you're serious about building something better, I have a proposal. Strict confidentiality required. All 5 replied within minutes. For the next 3 weeks, we gathered at my house each evening. We analyzed the flaws in Triumph's methodology, pinpointed the opportunities they were overlooking, and listed the clients most likely to be frustrated by the upcoming changes. We detailed what made RedForge's system superior and how we could advance it without violating any intellectual property laws. I used my severance pay to rent a modest office space and filed all necessary documents to establish Pinnacle Dynamics. The name was deliberately chosen to suggest rising above what RedForge had become. The day after my final paycheck arrived from Triumph, I received a message from Tyler Thompson. Heard you might be starting something. Let's talk before you do anything rash. I didn't reply. There was nothing to discuss. The time for that had passed weeks earlier when Caroline deemed my 12 years of work irrelevant to their new structure. Instead, I messaged my group. Office space secured. Legal documents are in place. Timeline moved up. Are you prepared to resign tomorrow? 5 variations of yes came back almost instantly. I closed my laptop and glanced at the framed photo on my desk, the original RedForge team taken 12 years ago. Harold had his arms slung around my shoulder, both of us beaming at our first successful prototype. This one's for you, Harold, I murmured. We'll do it right this time. 3 months after launching Pinnacle Dynamics, we signed our first significant client, Vestral Manufacturing, a mid-sized production plant that had long used RedForge systems. Their operations director, Anthony, had previously collaborated with me on custom energy management configurations. Triumph's integration team doesn't understand our needs, Anthony said during our presentation. They keep trying to shove us into their off-the-shelf solution. We showcased our new platform, rooted in RedForge's core design, but enhanced dramatically. Anthony signed a contract that very day. 2 days later, I received a certified letter from Triumph Energy's legal department, accusing us of breaching a non-compete clause and misappropriating proprietary material. They demanded we cease operations immediately and threatened legal action. I had expected this. Our attorney, Elainer Winslow, reviewed the letter and confirmed what I already believed. Their non-compete agreement was poorly drafted. It referenced energy management too broadly and contained no proof of stolen intellectual property, because none existed. Still, battling a Fortune 500 firm would rapidly deplete our limited resources. I chose to handle it head-on, requesting a meeting with Caroline. She accepted, likely thinking I'd be intimidated. We met at Triumph's sleek downtown office. The Red Forge logo had been reduced to a small icon in the corner of the lobby. "You realize this can't go on," Caroline began as we sat. "Your company is directly competing with technology you helped develop here. The technology one developed while working here is being retired by your own roadmap," I replied calmly. "And the non-compete only bars use of proprietary Red Forge systems, which we haven't used. Pinnacle's platform was built entirely from scratch." Caroline's jaw tightened. "Regardless, you violated the spirit of the agreement, and you're recruiting our people. Former employees who left voluntarily once their roles were changed after the acquisition." She leaned in. "Dustin, let's be pragmatic. Triumph has near limitless legal resources. You've got what? 3 months of cash flow? Why put yourself through this? We could bring you on as a consultant during the transition. 2-year contract. Very generous terms." There it was, the trap. They didn't want to reinstate me. They wanted to tie me down legally while eliminating any real competition. "Thank you for the offer," I said, standing. "But I'll take my chances with Pinnacle." That afternoon, Triumph retaliated. They contacted Vestral Manufacturing and 2 other prospects, warning them of possible legal complications if they proceeded with Pinnacle. Anthony called right away. "They're threatening to audit our current systems and cancel our support contracts if we work with you," he said, clearly frustrated. "We can't afford that risk right now." Within 24 hours, we lost all 3 potential deals. Our financial runway shrank from months to mere weeks. That evening, our small team gathered in the office. Faces were tight with tension. They looked to me. "They're playing hardball," I acknowledged. "But they've miscalculated." I opened an email on the screen. I had received it that morning from Harold Thompson, Red Forge's original founder. He'd been quietly observing the acquisition unravel from retirement. "Dustin, I've been keeping track of everything. Triumph didn't just acquire Red Forge's technology. They inherited its issues too. Call me. I think we can be of help to each other." I looked over at my team. Triumph was so focused on crushing us that they were neglecting their own integration efforts. We knew Red Forge's original architecture inside out, its weak points, its limitations. Harold mentioned they were already encountering system failures with several major clients. Jason nodded slowly, realization settling in. "And those clients are going to need immediate solutions. Solutions Triumph can't deliver fast enough." "Exactly," I said. "They're trying to bury us under legal pressure while their technical foundation is falling apart. We don't have to fight them directly. We just need to be prepared when their clients start searching for alternatives." Our meeting with Harold changed everything. We met at his lake house outside Boulder, far from prying eyes. At 72, he moved more slowly than during our working years, but his mind was as sharp as ever. "They didn't just buy Red Forge for the tech," Harold said, spreading out documents across his dining table. "They bought it for the client contracts, particularly the Meridian Energy Group deal. Meridian had been our largest client, a regional utility company serving 3 states. Their account alone made up nearly 30% of Red Forge's yearly revenue. What Triumph doesn't get," Harold went on, "is that Meridian's infrastructure needs are entirely unique. Their grid management system was heavily customized. You led that project, Dustin." I nodded. 4 years of development. Nearly burned out the whole team to get it working. Harold slid a confidential memo across the table. Internal Triumph communications, forwarded to him by a board member still loyal to our cause. They were promising Meridian a smooth integration while secretly planning to force them into Triumph's standardized architecture. The schedule? 6 months for a system that took us 4 years to build. Even worse, the memo dismissed many of Meridian's specific requirements as unnecessary tweaks that would be eliminated. Meridian doesn't know yet, Harold said softly. But when implementation starts and the limitations show up, they'll face service interruptions. Maybe even regulatory penalties if they can't meet required reporting. Exactly. And here's what Triumph hasn't figured out. The Meridian contract I negotiated included performance guarantees. Severe penalties if the system fails to maintain 99% uptime. That was the missing piece. Triumph hadn't just bought RedForge. They'd taken on obligations they couldn't meet. No wonder they were so eager to shut down Pinnacle. They feared we'd approach Meridian before Triumph's failures became obvious. But there was something more in Harold's expression, a personal motivation beneath his logic. Why are you helping us? I asked bluntly. Triumph paid you generously for the acquisition. Harold's gaze hardened. They did. Then they used provisions in the agreement to reduce the final payment, citing integration expenses. Tyler didn't fully understand what he was agreeing to. The deal that made the news? We got about 60% of that figure. And my son's share? Completely wiped out. There it was. Triumph had rigged the acquisition to shortchange the original team using financial trickery that Tyler never saw coming. They hadn't just abandoned Red Forge's legacy. They had betrayed its founders. Does Tyler know you're talking to me? I asked. Harold shook his head. He took a job with Triumph's corporate development group. He thinks they're grooming him for executive leadership. His voice was thick with quiet disappointment. He'll realize the truth eventually. As I drove back to Denver, a new clarity emerged. This wasn't only about my job loss or Triumph's missteps. It was about something bigger, a systemic pattern of corporate predation, targeting smaller firms with strong client bases, buying them under misleading terms, stripping out what they needed, discarding the rest. The engineers they laid off, calculated costs, the promises they broke, negotiation strategies, the technology they gutted, disposable parts. I pulled into my driveway and sat still for several minutes, absorbing it all. Then I called Jason. Get the team together. Office meeting tomorrow, 7 a.m. We need to speed up development of the Meridian-compatible platform. And I want every piece of documentation we still have on their grid system. Are we going after Meridian? Jason asked, a mix of excitement and concern in his voice. Not yet, I said, but we're going to be ready when they come looking for help. And they will, faster than Triumph thinks. We had 8 weeks to prepare for Meridian's looming crisis. Our team worked nonstop, building a platform that could not only integrate with Meridian's current infrastructure, but improve it significantly. I kept my distance from Meridian's executives, assuming Triumph had people monitoring any communication. Instead, I focused on our capacity, on building evidence. We tracked every publicly known failure in Triumph's rollout, compiling a detailed report that laid bare the flaws in their approach. Meanwhile, Harold tapped into his industry network. Without giving away our strategy, he started raising questions at energy conferences about the risks of forced tech migrations and the importance of custom architecture. The conversation was unfolding exactly where it needed to, within the professional networks where Meridian's technical leadership was engaged. The first significant crack appeared 5 weeks into our preparation. Triumph launched the initial stage of Meridian's system migration and immediately ran into the exact issues we had predicted. 3 substations suffered monitoring breakdowns, resulting in lapses in regulatory compliance data. Meridian's chief technology officer, Vanessa Powell, publicly described the glitches as routine transition difficulties, but privately, according to Harold's sources, she was livid. 2 weeks later, when the second phase caused a 4-hour reporting blackout across an entire service area, the situation intensified. Meridian issued an official deficiency notice to Triumph, activating the contract's performance guarantee clauses. Triumph's reaction was revealing. They shifted blame onto supposed architectural flaws they had inherited from RedForge. They were building a case to void the performance guarantees by claiming the original system was faulty. That was the opening we had been waiting for. I drafted a comprehensive technical report showing that the failures weren't due to Redforge's original design, but rather Triumph's incompatible integration strategy. Harold hand-delivered the document to Vanessa Powell. 3 days later, I received a text message from an unrecognized number. "Coffee tomorrow, 2 p.m., West Side Rowers." It was signed simply VP. When I arrived, Vanessa was already seated in a back booth. She got straight to the point. "Your analysis aligns with our internal reports," she said quietly. "Triumph is trying to force us into their framework to avoid supporting our custom features. The regulatory risks are unacceptable. You have options," I replied cautiously. "Do I?" she countered. "Our contract with Triumph is binding. Breaking would trigger penalties exceeding our entire annual tech budget. Unless Triumph is in material breach through performance failures," I offered, "which your legal team is probably investigating now." Her faint smile confirmed my assumption. "We'd still need an immediate solution," she said. "Regulatory reporting can't wait for a drawn-out vendor evaluation process." I slid a flash drive across the table. "This is a technical summary of Pinnacle's platform. It was specifically designed to address the problems you're facing. We can deploy within 3 weeks, with no disruption to compliance." She slipped the drive in her bag without looking at it. "Triumph claims you've breached non-compete agreements." "They've made that claim, yes, but their legal stance is on shaky ground. Our counsel has prepared a full analysis." I handed over a second drive. "This contains our attorney's opinion. Your legal team will find it insightful." Vanessa gave a single nod. "I'll be in touch." 2 days later, Triumph announced an emergency stabilization of Meridian Systems, effectively acknowledging the failure of their integration plan. Their stock dropped 8% by market close. That evening, I received an official request for a proposal from Meridian Energy Group, bypassing their typical procurement process under emergency authority. I assembled our team. "This is it. Meridian needs a solution now, and we've built exactly what they're looking for. Everything we've done comes down to this proposal." Jason scanned the room, taking in our lean but resolute team. "Should we be worried about Triumph's reaction when they realize what's happening?" I shook my head. "They created this mess. Now, they'll have to watch us clean it up." The Meridian board meeting was set for 10 a.m. on Thursday. By 10:45, my phone buzzed. "Unanimous approval," Vanessa said without preamble. "Expedited contract execution. Implementation starts Monday." Within the hour, our attorney confirmed the contract had no hidden pitfalls. Meridian had accepted our full implementation fee plus a 3-year maintenance plan. The deal was large enough to secure Pinnacle's financial future for years. More crucially, the agreement included specific indemnification against any legal claims from Triumph. Meridian's lawyers had reviewed our position and confirmed what we already knew. Triumph's non-compete accusations wouldn't hold up under close legal examination. By mid-afternoon, news of the deal spread through the industry. Triumph's stock fell another 12%. Their legal department immediately filed for an emergency injunction to stop our contract. The hearing was scheduled for Monday morning, the same day our deployment was due to begin. At the courthouse, Triumph had 4 attorneys in attendance, led by their chief counsel. Caroline sat behind them, her expression taut with controlled fury. The judge reviewed the filings methodically, then turned directly to Triumph's lawyers. "Your non-compete clauses appear to prohibit use of proprietary Redforge systems," she said. "However, evidence suggests Pinnacle created independent architecture. Furthermore, Meridian's filing shows a compelling public interest in sustaining reliable utility services." She denied the injunction without further discussion. As we left the courtroom, Caroline intercepted me in the hallway. "This isn't over," she said coldly. "Triumph doesn't lose." I met her gaze evenly. This was never about winning or losing. It was about creating something that genuinely worked. I walked past her toward where my team was waiting. Together, we left to begin the implementation that would secure both Meridian's infrastructure and Pinnacle's future. The quiet triumph felt complete. 18 months after securing the Meridian contract, Pinnacle Dynamics had expanded to 27 employees. We occupied an entire floor of a downtown Boulder office building, with sweeping views of the mountains that had witnessed both my professional downfall and resurgence. The Meridian rollout had gone flawlessly, finished ahead of schedule with zero service disruptions. Word spread across the industry. Within a year, 4 additional major clients transitioned to our platform. Eventually, Triumph abandoned their legal challenge, shifting their focus to minimizing the fallout within their energy division. Caroline Vega was reassigned to a subsidiary in another state. Tyler Thompson moved on to a startup accelerator, a bit wiser from the ordeal. Harold would occasionally drop by our office, quiet pride on his face as he observed the rebirth of an idea he had once helped shape. He never officially joined Pinnacle, but his mentorship remained indispensable. On the second anniversary of my termination, I received an unexpected email from my former supervisor at RedForge, the same person who had hired me 12 years ago. "You built something better than we ever could have," the message read. "Some of us saw what was coming, but couldn't stop the acquisition. Some wins just take time." I shut my laptop and headed to the conference room, where our team was celebrating the completion of a new system module. These weren't just colleagues anymore. They were true partners, people who had taken the same leap I did, believing that skill and integrity would eventually overcome corporate politics. Later that night, I stood alone on my back deck, watching the sunset spill color across the mountains. The bitterness of betrayal had long since faded, replaced by something unexpected: gratitude. Without Triumph's arrogance, without Caroline's dismissal, Pinnacle might never have come to life. I hadn't merely rebuilt my career. I had created something far more in line with my principles than RedForge ever could have become under Triumph's leadership. Sometimes, getting pushed out of the wrong place is exactly what you need to find the right one.